and work remotely. I can't deal with these winters in London anymore. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah,
So
good for you.
I've started, yeah, I've been doing this since the pandemic, and it works really well. And actually, I get a lot more time to do a lot of the writing and kind of the really deep work that you just can't when you're seeing, I'm seeing patients, I'm doing all my normal stuff here, but because of the time difference, the kind of any time after lunchtime, everything is like deep work. It's very quiet, and there's no one emailing me, more importantly. So it works really well.
And do you stay in the same place, or do you
Yeah,
find
so
different places?
I've been in the same town for this is my third year here. So now I'm thinking, is it time for a change? But the thing is, it's a really great town. It's really set up for digital nomads. It's small enough you can walk everywhere. There's a lot of health and wellness stuff, and it's up by the beach. So it's
Wow.
gonna be hard to find somewhere else, and good Wi-Fi, more importantly. So it's gonna be hard, yeah, and like organic food and things like that. So it's gonna be
Very
hard to find
good.
somewhere
Very
else.
good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. I'm really
Whereabouts
trying to
in
find a
Mexico?
it's called Sayulito. It's on the Pacific coast, about an hour north from Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, beautiful. That's brilliant. What a lovely balance you've got.
Yeah, no, and like the first few times, I think with academic institutions they find it quite hard because they just can't get their head around it. Because I do quite a lot of academic research, but now they've got most of the groups I work with have got used to it. They understand, and they also know that I'm very good at getting my work done. If in fact, if anything, I'm more efficient. So, but I think if people work in academia, even in traditional healthcare, they find it very odd, and then you're like, actually, this works. But I think that's people like you and I obviously get that you can do this in multiple ways.
Totally. I think it's a brilliant concept. Well done.
Thank you.
Good. And how is life generally with the work you're doing? Are you finding you're getting busier, or it's getting different, or?
I feel like it is getting busier. I do think that people are trying to understand, get the integrative approach. They understand it a little bit more, the longevity, the wellness, and really, it's evidence informed. And I think that we have to get away from this evidence-based RCT control because there's a lot of things that we haven't tested, but at the same time we have a lot of data and a lot of evidence. And I do think that people, and I think as our NHS unfortunately is crumbling a little bit, people are more willing to go outside of that kind of traditional healthcare space. But I also think that people are really trying to understanding that there's nutrition and lifestyle makes such a huge difference to your health and
Absolutely.
well-being, and that isn't provided by our healthcare system is essentially a sick care system. It's not a healthcare system.
Yeah.
And so I think from that perspective, people are also willing to invest in preventative healthcare, which I don't think happened 20 years ago when I got into this space. People just found it very odd, but now I think people are really getting that and that's a global thing. It's not just the UK. So I think it's definitely, I mean, obviously it's challenging in the times that, people have less money in some ways, but I think people still want to invest in their healthcare. And I think that's really important.
Fantastic. Well, carry on the good work. I think it's brilliant. So do you have a base in London when you're not in Mexico?
Yeah, so I'm based in right by London, between London and Tower Bridge. So I do still see all my patients mostly on Zoom, though, to be fair. But I do host a lot more events and a lot more different things. So yeah. So basically, 10 months of the year I'm in London. Well, maybe 9 months, but then the 2 months, 3 months I'm traveling, of which obviously some of it's holiday, but most of the time, when I'm in Mexico, I'm pretty much working. I'm really lucky because I have a lot of family all over the place. So I can also just jump around. My brother lives in Hong Kong. So there's always the opportunity to bounce a little bit. But yeah, generally, based in London. Went to medical school, realized quite early on, wanted to be an oncologist, realized quite early on that, we weren't really helping people post their kind of treatment.
No.
Nothing was really happening, as in, we weren't helping them to recover and to rebuild themselves. You're giving them a treatment, they're like, bye. And so for me, that's really where my mom had breast cancer. That's where I was like, hang on a second, is that what I want to do? I want to help people. I don't want to just give them medication and then that's the end of that. I want to just drop them. So that's really where I, kind of converted to that whole nutritional medicine and kind of integrative space, quite early on in my medical career. Which, obviously was really, as a brown person leaving medicine, it was a bit, it was tricky, but I do feel like it's been the right thing to do. And I do feel like, and of course at the beginning, when I think about the early 2000s, even like up to 2015, 16, no one really understood it. Now it's a different, kettle of fish.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah,
What
well,
about
certainly.
yourself?
So yeah, I mean, again, I kind of ventured into root cause analysis about a decade ago, not quite knowing how it's going to unfold. And I thought just having more time with people would be enough. But actually, it was the same pathways that we were given with a nice cup of coffee and a bit more time. It didn't actually change anything. And nice guidelines were just transported from NHS to private practice. So you really were not changing the pathways. But then it was the patients that came in and said, look, why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? So I went on a few courses in the US and Europe and slowly started to understand the 12 hallmarks of aging, the cellular medicine, and thought, well, why isn't this applied? Because it's not that difficult. And started to apply it. And the results were profound. What was more interesting was that the patients, it resonated with them. When you told them that if you did A, B, C in this order and this strategy, this is what you're trying to achieve, it said that makes sense. And the compliance to some of the things we do was very high. And on top of that, we just built more and more stops and more things we could do, but kept to the same strategy, which effectively is detox first, clear out the gut, deal with the waiting list on top of the liver, get the autophagy in to get rid of the glycogen and the protein debris, then repair, then renew. That's what you do in a house. And so within those, we have strategies for those who are very wealthy and those who have nothing, because you can democratize this strategy anywhere in the world, because our indigenous wisdom colleagues in the slides and Aborigine are already practicing it, right? So it just became so simple, and it wasn't me sitting in a room trying to make 100 diagnoses. It doesn't matter what they came in, the strategy stayed the same, whether it's eczema or precancer, because it's all about mitoinflammation and the epigenetic space. And so, and as all roads lead to inflammation, it took away all the nonsense about the biomarkers. You could do a million things, but if it's all inflammation, why are you looking for different versions of the same thing? Accept its inflammation and deal with it at core. So with that, we've kind of just grown, and it's been lovely because you don't have to persuade people. They intuitively know it. We sort of resonate with the right side of their brain, but they just need the confidence to say, well, an expert's told me I must have a statin and I must have this and I must have that. And the reality is they're working from a very narrow rule book. And the higher you get, the worse it gets, not the better. Oh, so, when people say I've seen the top man in cardiology, I think, goodness, we have a problem because, they're totally research-based and totally pharmaceutical or diagnostic-based. And it's about ego. And there's lots of ego in the higher medical profession. It's about, this is what you do because I've got the best evidence. And the RCT is used as a defense tool towards all these little trials that are showing huge amounts of benefit. So I think it's all been, I have to be cynical, it's all been sort of architected to protect pharmaceutical and diagnostics and stop people from coming in.
Absolutely. And I think this is the thing, pharmaceuticals, the thing is it's a billions of dollar industry or pounds or whatever you want to say, and I think the problem is that if you look at the actual data, and it's really hard because there's less data on nutrition and lifestyle, but if we really look at what we do have, we know that doing all the things that you're talking about, like looking after our mitochondria, looking after anti-inflammation, all of those things has profound impacts on any kind of symptom and cause. And if you, I guess the one example is just that challenge trial they did in colorectal cancer, by doing a prescribed exercise, it was more effective than most cancer drugs. And for me personally, as somebody who works in the, predominantly in the oncology and metabolic health space, but that is so profound because it's something that I've been saying for ages. And, just for transparency, I've had breast cancer 3 times from a very young age. I was 29 and I have a strong family history, but it's never spread. And I've been doing all these things, and I do I think that exercise, there's also levels. At the beginning you start with the nutrition exercise, then you go into kind of more the mitochondrial work, or maybe the spiritual work, or the emotional work, because all of these things are related, right? And I think that's where traditional medicine hasn't really done enough. And I think even last week I did a talk about literally for a wellbeing conference about inflammation and anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle. And I just got an email back saying about, the feedback. People like just, they had no idea. And I'm like, I started the talk with saying, look, inflammation is the kind of common soil in which many diseases grow, because it actually is. And like, I think if people can understand that and see the simple things that they could do, and I've just given them a 5-day kind of anti-inflammatory reset, just really simple things like, deep breathing when they're feeling stressed, and when they're, or before food, like, anti-inflammatory diet, lots more polyphenols, omega-3, just those things. And that, as you said, you can democratize it and make it cheaper and easier. But if you think about the health economics of it, by doing all this, it's going to save so much more money anyway.
Yeah. So, I think this is the point you make. It's with breast cancer. If you look at the profile, it's usually very busy people, or certainly busy minds, consciously.
Oh yes, it's busy. We like doing all the things, all the things.
Yeah. So with that, your progesterone will be called into frontline battle. The adrenal gland will call upon it. So DHEA steal, progesterone steal through stress leads to estrogen dominance, and then estrogen dominance has all those other issues: PCOS, endometriosis, breast cancer. So ultimately, the body's not going wrong. We've just gone into the wrong energy zone, and all of us are in the wrong energy zone. So energy medicine is really where we should be moving, and that's the sort of conversations I'm starting to have, saying you're operating on the wrong channels here. Your immune system's in frontline battle since Lyme's, and then your hormones get called up, and you get the issues, and then your autonomic nervous system gets called up, and that's the worst. That's when POTS and MCAS start going on. These are not diseases. These are simply measures and radars of why you're operating on the wrong channels. And what is interesting is some of these are the most successful people in the world because of that, because they are just so wired. But it's also happening in the womb, it's happening in childhood, and it's this passive, invisible intruder that's absorbing these individuals with post-viral fatigue and all the other things that we're seeing. And what we found is if we do go down this strategy, the same as you're doing, people get better. But when they do get stuck, and this is what we've been doing in last year, is why are they stuck? And you mentioned the word spiritual. The next decade, I think, is going to be neuroscience. I mean, I've just mind-boggled about what the brain is capable of doing, good and bad. So whether it's manifestation and afferent pathways getting you better and healing you, to trauma that's stuck in the subconscious mind that needs to be unraveled. And then having looked at this research, there you go. Thousands of years ago, everyone knew about it. Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Native American, all practiced this concept of energy medicine. And where you are, ayahuasca, Kambo, all these things are about unleashing.
And to be honest, look, between you and I, like that's partly why I come out here, because it's easier in a busy city. It's very hard to be. There's a lot of influences, right? There's a lot of energies around you. And when you're out in nature, really with the ground, and there's an opportunity to do some of these more indigenous practices, whether it's Temazcal or Kambo or all these. Yeah, and I do think psychedelics are going to play a huge role in kind of medicine going forward, and all those different things. I think that's when, and we've got to trust the nature and earth, because that's where we came from. And I think that's where, the damage that we're doing to the environment is, it's all part and parcel of the same thing, isn't it? So, God, it's such a delight to meet somebody else, because there are people, and don't get me wrong, there are people, and I have friends but like to meet other people, especially through LinkedIn and stuff like that, who are very much on the same wavelength as me, is just because sometimes you don't share everything, because you don't, you want people to think you're woo. Yeah, especially when you're like, have your foot, like, I have my one foot in this academic research stroke breast cancer world, and the other foot in this really integrative space, and bridging that gap, because there is a gap essentially, and I think you can bridge it successfully, and I think if we bridge it, that's how we can really support people in the communities that we want to support. That's what makes a difference. And for my own personal health and well-being, as you're saying about this being busy, I can totally see my emotional, psychological things playing out with this breast cancer diagnosis. And when I talk to young women, and I'm really talking about women who are diagnosed before 40, they've all had some sort of trauma within 2 years of being 100%. Diagnosed. And I had my own trauma, and I think that's where we really need to go back. And so part of the research I want to do is understand this kind of, how do we understand how the impact of like psychological stress and our body, and like I just talk about the hormones and the progesterone. Like I think the other thing is we live in such a estrogenic environment too. All of these things, it makes a perfect storm, doesn't it? So for me, I can just look back and see those perfect storms happening, and I'm very lucky that I have the capacity and the space to be able to reflect on that and be like, not why me. I'm like, oh my god, okay, great, I can use the learning experience to work even deeper with my patients. And each time it's been a very different level of understanding. And the first time was very purely physical, and the second time was, okay, there's some emotional stuff here, and the third time is definitely a more spiritual, psychological, okay, what is it that I haven't addressed yet?
Yes, and I think this is really important because for me, it's always that argument: physical first or mental first. And I've come to the conclusion we have to get the physical right because we're primordial still. Our genes are still 100,000 years old, and the only time our sympathetic nervous system worked was when we needed food, water, shelter, or were being chased by saber-tooth tigers. So ultimately, what we do is fix the gut, fix the liver, fix the mitochondria, fix the hormones, so that the sympathetic pathway, when it looks down and says, okay, now you want me to do the mindful stuff, let me just put that there. Yes, they're all working, I'm going to let go of it. The vagus nerve just lets go of it. But then that other bit is where all the power lies, changing those pathways in the brain. But when the body's in, you can't give if you're empty. That's the bottom line. And if you, so you've got to fuel up, and then you can get to those high levels. And you start making good reflective decisions. I know a lot of high net worth individuals who 3 or 4 pathways down this line, they just get bigger and bigger in their mindset, and then they resign. They literally resign from their big jobs where they can literally do what they want. So I'm fed up of being 12 personas. I found out who I am, and I'm exiting. So you can see our natural place is in nature. Our natural place is with humans and in communities. But it's the ego and this material success that just draws us in as a magnet. And unfortunately, we approve cortisol stress. If you did well at school, you go to a bigger school, bigger exams, bigger job. And we're just approving the system of external energy at a cost of internal energy.
And I think, if you look at kind of, I think the way the world is set up, with, and it's all playing out massively, unfortunately, very capitalism. Like if you think about all the wars that are going on, it's all about resources, really, essentially, isn't it? Really, and suppression and oppression of people. And then you take that kind of. So what we saw, if you think about the famines that happen in what is now India, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the kind of the subcontinent in that kind of 19th century or 18th century, like those epigenetics have basically changed how we as South Asians metabolically, are. We're going to see the same thing in 50 years with Palestine. We're going to see the same, as long as they're not all, killed off. But this is the thing. I think people have often not realized that some of this stress is actually because we are not in communion with nature. We're not actually in community anymore. We're not in a collective society. We have got powers that are really looking at having power over rather than power with. And if we can address that, because a lot of the stress is actually like the racism, the sexism, that all of those things too, the isms, and there's definitely work to be done there too. And I think that when you can do your own work, then you can actually start to work with communities in that way and actually transfer and have power with rather than power over. And I think that traditionally it's, and I think we have to understand what is playing out right in the world right now. I do think collectively, and I'm going to talk only about the UK and the US. There's so much harm being done. That inflammation is going higher and higher, and we're going to basically, the downstream effect is going to be a lot of people with a lot of different diseases.
Yes, and you're seeing children with autoimmunity much earlier now, thyroid antibodies in young teenagers, because they live in abundance, but are super anxious because there's no security, there's no inner blanket that's saying you're okay. And that used to come from community.
Their lives on they're constantly 24/7 switched on. We were lucky. We could, I remember when there was only 3 channels. I remember when there was nothing to watch on Sunday. I remember when the supermarket shut at 6 p.m. and that was the end of that. And so you just be at home or with your friends or your family or whoever it was. But Now everything's on all the time, so there's no rest and digest. Like that parasympathetic nervous system, it's harder and harder and harder, and it's like takes someone like me who knows all this literally to take myself to another continent, not even a country, another continent, to have that space, which is kind of crazy, realistically. Our cities are not built in the way that allows people to be communities.
Yes. Well, certainly, I'm a great believer in all the work you're doing. And we work with Dr. Stiff in Chicago, who's in your world. He was an oncologist.
Yeah, we had a nice chat the other day. We had a really good chat. And
Yeah. So, and for us, we do see a lot of patients who, they come to us because they want that alternative field, reluctantly have to end up in sort of cancer treatments, the traditional, but then afterwards want some support. So, we would love to collaborate with you and sort of have you on our website as a, because this is exactly what they want. They're going everywhere else in the world. They're going to Germany. They're going because there's no one who's actually A, doing it, and B, understanding it. So it's quite important that these people aren't left, finding their own way to some extent. And then, of course, the system's not supporting them because they're saying, well, don't do it because we're not sure. Don't take that vitamin because it may interfere with your chemotherapy rather than the other way around. So
honestly, it's a wild west, and I know from having been in the system, and I'll give you my own personal example in this way that the last diagnosis I had, there was no spread as such, it was a local reoccurrence, right? But because it was the third time, and the reason being the second time we didn't do radiotherapy, and that was not my decision necessarily, but they were like, because it was the third time and they'd ignored me for so long, they basically wanted to throw the kitchen sink, and they're like, oh, you need to have chemotherapy. And I was like, no, I don't need to have chemotherapy because there's absolutely no, if you look at the data, it would have been between 1% and 3% benefit to reduce my mortality, 10-year mortality rate, yet it would have killed, like, my, the side effects are so systemic. Why would I do that to myself? And then they made me go to UCL to have a second opinion. And I'm at the Marsden. I'm not even like at some random, I'm at the literally at the Marsden. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I literally refuse to do that. What I suggest we do is I do all my stuff, and if you were concerned, let's do a wider area of radiotherapy, and then we'll agree to that, and that's it. And it was the amount of pushback, even as someone who knows, and even my own team, I'm constantly have to send them stuff like, no, I'm not, no, I mean, obviously it's past it now, but just like, I'm doing these medicinal mushrooms because this is the data, this is what I'm going to do when I whether they're not there read it, but what I do have is at least I have the relationship now with it, because I had to also sack my oncologist and get another one, with the oncologist saying, look, this is it, you can either, I'm just going to do this stuff, so you can either be on board and we can work together and collaborate, you can understand, try and at least know what I'm doing, or I'm just not going to, so I think I understand from the public's perspective there's so much, but at least now integrative ecology, even in 5 years, is actually it's a phrase, it's a word, and the fact that Professor Robert Thomas actually now has a department, and slowly people will get it, but touch wood, I'm 5 years out and all good. And I think this is where patients really having that kind of understanding of that deep, more than 20 years plus of that experience and knowledge, but also what I can also say to them, listen, I walk the walk, I talk the talk with you, I understand what it feels like, I totally understand how the system can make you feel, and I think that's an advantage that I have that a lot of people don't have.
Yes, fantastic. No, I agree, and I think it's great, and it resonates. You're passionate, you believe in it, and you'll make others will sort of feel from that, I think, and that's really important. So essentially, the areas like the post-cancer treatments is definitely one, but autoimmunity is also a massive area. And
I'm doing a lot of stuff on thyroid at the moment and cancer, because there's such a link with low hypothyroidism and cancer, breast cancer. And again, it's been ignored, yet so many people are hypothyroid. And really, again, if you look at the link with the progesterone back again. So when I had my radiotherapy, unfortunately, they never gave me a thyroid guard. And obviously, if you're under 45 and you have subclavically, you're very likely to have thyroid issues. I didn't realize for a while, just for lots of reasons. And then even now I'm dealing with, and that's because my thyroid has been zapped essentially, but just trying to work through that. And what the NHS want to do, they're like, no, you're subclinical hyper. I'm like, I still have to treat this, and it's like, no, and luckily one of my best friends, actually she's someone I should introduce you to. She's called Dr. Natasha Patel. She's an endocrinologist specializing in diabetes metabolic health, but functionally integratively trained. Been one of my closest friends since I was a child. But she and I, so basically I my whole thing is, even though I have this like traditional medical, I just like, right, Natasha, what I'm thinking I should do this, what do you think? And I get that sense check from her, because she's so she managed to convince my team that, to prescribe me. But obviously I was just like, well, one way or another we'll just do it. But like, it's been really interesting, because now I'm like thinking that maybe we need to, like, the red light therapy is so important, for people with thyroid issues, like, the nutrients, like, are they
ferritin,
selenium, like everything,
selenium,
right?
So we come from nutrition, and so I think from my perspective, everything you're saying is about the fact that things just need feeding correctly, rather than just putting an elastoplast on things. And for us, we've had phenomenal results with autoimmunity just through the clean out, and then also the supplementations. But the big winners hormonally: progesterone, DHEA, iron, getting the ferritin levels to a good place. Vitamin D, we believe in getting levels to 175 to 200.
Honestly, the vitamin D, I don't understand why people don't. For me, that's like so basic. I just can't understand why. It's a cheap and cheerful, thing you could do, right? It's fascinating. Another thing I was going to say is that I do. So I'm a genomics practitioner. So I always do kind of all the genomics. Yeah. So I've been doing that for like 7-8 years. But like, that's an area, because I do feel like that having that personalized data means that you can focus on the area. So for some of my patients, like for example, one of my patients I've got now, she's, a lot of her health, like she's eating well, she's doing the exercise, she's doing all the stuff. What her problem is stress, like really her stress. Like I've just been looking at her HRV data, it's so low. And, one of the things we've talked about is boundaries with her family. Like, she just constantly, has anxiety. And then we did a bunch of her genomics, but even like her nervous system goes into flight or fight so quickly. And so, yeah. And I think so, but for me, like with that particular patient, it's like really focusing on how to help her with the boundaries, how to help her with like managing that stress. And of course, there's loads of nutrients and lifestyle things that we can do, but she has to also then, like, she won't talk to her family. Like she said, I'm just getting on, like, and doing all the things for the family as normal. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. That's why this happened to you in the first place. So, it's been, I think there is that. And like, good thing about what your network is that at least, like, obviously I'm not a psychotherapist. I can talk to her about it, but I also want to refer her on. She's actually in Italy, this particular patient. So it's a little bit trickier, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the beauty of collaboration, is that you can pass them on to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, of course, AI is this conversation we're having between London and Mexico. We don't have to restrict ourselves to the best people geographically anymore. I could speak to Dr. Stiff in Chicago, you. So ultimately, for someone to speak to someone in Italy, there's no problem now. So that's the beauty of opening this chapter up, because it's such an integrative approach. We just have to find the right people to work with that can support it. Like you mentioned, Dr. Patel. There's a couple of others in rheumatology also want to practice integrative medicine rather than conventional prescribing medicine. And I think collaboration should be now beyond the UK. I think like-minded people are all over the place, and that's how the community grows. And I think that's where the real opportunity and the work you're doing and we're doing lies, because I have some of the best conversations for people in the US now, just because they get it. So
it's hard, isn't it? Like, I mean, the good thing is it's easy because of Zoom and all of these things. I think the only thing so my main problem in the UK, and I think that you're probably like me able to circumnavigate that, is like the restrictions in some of the supplements and meds and drugs and stuff. So for example, like for me personally, no one wants to give me any sort of hormones because I've had a hormone sensitive breast cancer.
Well, we do all the time, because I do compound pharmacy. And
that's what I'm saying. Like, this is why it's so good to work with someone like you, because like obviously I can't, but like I can, like if I work with other people, then I've just prescribed myself through Natasha progesterone, because I'm like, I need progesterone now. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you know, but
you see, you're born with those hormones. What happened? They went out of sync. That's all. Doesn't mean you don't need them. So when we do estrogen, we do biased E3 and E2, a nice combination, and we don't run you beyond 200 to 300 ranges. The combined contraceptive pill gives you 2,000 throughout the 30 days.
It's too high.
So,
it's too high.
So it's a question of balance, and hence we do a lot of work with progesterone, keep the estrogen, because you've got to remember you need these. These are your highways, and the dysfunction wasn't bad estrogen; it was dominant estrogen. You know, and ultimately, so we don't have a problem with that. And the other thing, of course, is it's anti-inflammatory. If you keep all your highways open, you're not going to get other disease, decline, and disorder, which creates inflammation, which then creates cancer. So they just throw the baby out in the bathwater because they're surgeons. They do not understand physiology. And beauty of personalized medicine is bioidentical. So, you know, you're having a stressful time, your hormones are dynamic. So as long as you have the intuition, it's not an issue. So we do prescribe, and, you know, we do bespoke compound prescribing with specialist married blood.
It's great to hear that, because, like, I think that, you know, like, it's all very well someone like me going to lots of people, and I've got that contacts and the ability to do that, but most patients don't have that. So to have that in-house is super important, because you know that they just haven't got access to that. And I think that even, like, you know, just even the basics with the vaginal estrogen, like, you know, it's like, come on, just give it to them, give the breast cancer patient. So I have an email which I basically copy and paste, which is to their GP or whoever oncologist, and be like, this is the data. They say, just give them the vaginal estrogen, like, at the bare minimum. Like, just do it. You know.
Yes, and E3 is fine anyway. And we use a lot of melatonin too, because again, melatonin has been criminalized. It is a phenomenal anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. It's made by your pineal gland, your longevity gland, you know, for goodness sake. And the amount of proper sun, you know, we don't go to bed with sunset and rise with sunrise anymore. So we're all depleted by definition. And all these kids with neurodiversities, because they're melatonin depleted too. So again, hormones are super powerful, and we just need to understand them a bit more. And so a lot of our work in the infrastructure is looking at these hormones. And we've done some great work with ADHD as well, you know, in terms of getting people more in the room than they would before.
I don't know whether you're saying this, but I'm getting so many more. I mean, mostly these people come to me, you know, with breast cancer, metabolic issues, but, like, there's women who are perimenopausal or chemical menopause, and the ADHD is out of control. And
they're not on cortisol, they're on sugar.
Yeah, and they haven't even been, you know, a lot of them haven't been diagnosed in that bit. And I'm like, you know, as soon as I see them, I'm like, oh, have you ever considered, you know, blah, blah, blah. You might have ADHD or whatever. And I think that's been quite interesting, because there's so much you can do to support these people who are suffering on, you know, multiple levels. And then you're like, well, let's tweak this, and even, like, just things like their B vitamins and, you know, all that stuff.
Well,
but in conjunction,
we use a lot of nootropics with the bees, etc. So, you know, and also it's about feeding the brain the fats and not the sugar. So we say to them, look, we need to get the glycogen out, so you'll start going into ketosis, and then you'll be more in the present. And so it's all linked. And why it's multi-disease is because everything happens everywhere at the same time. So it just manifests in certain places, but it's happening everywhere. And I say to my patients, if you've got eczema on the end of your nose, all of your 30 trillion cells are inflamed. It just happens to express there. So everything will get better.
So that's great.
No, it's great. Well, we'd love to work with you, and we'd love to refer to you. You know,
how does that normally work? How do you normally work? Just from a more practical, logistical.
So practically, what we do is have your bio, your template, and, you know, we could, if this is, I think it's recorded, our tech team can just take snippets of these conversations. People love these sort of conversations, share them with you, and we can put them on some of our social media too. And then once the bio is ready, we have a meeting with all our doctors who work for us to know that you're around. And then we just create a referral pathway where you add your link to our website. They press the link and they go straight to your website and can book an appointment. So for us, it's about collaboration, and it's about getting the right people in that chamber. And then that way our doctors can refer to you, but equally people looking at our website can be aware of you and refer themselves directly. So it's a very simple relationship. If you need us to do bloods or hormones or strips
Yeah.
were around in London. So, similarly, so we don't like sort of hard contract arrangements. We just want to just work with the right people. And we have to refer somewhere. So we'd rather refer to someone we know than just look up somebody in Google.
No, I appreciate that. And then as far as like kind of, is it like, do you ever do MDTs or like have, where discussions where we can refer back to other people within the network? Because sometimes I won't know your network that well. So is there somebody that I can speak to that's...
Yes. So we have a concierge team that are aware of what everybody else does. And so it could be one-to-one, or you can speak to these consultants directly, or it could be a group of 3 or 4 like-minded individuals saying, look, this would be a better strategy. So whether it's hospital consultants or functional practitioners or nutritionists, that MDT is part and parcel of what we do. And we use Semble as our IT system. So we
yeah. So I'm using Practice Better at the moment. That's, it's all much of a muchness, but like it's all, we can integrate it. Yeah, that's fine. No, I just really want to understand, because like for me, there's definitely things I want to do, but because I can't prescribe, I would need to go back to someone.
Yeah, I've taken a view 10 years ago. It's about competencies, not about qualifications. So Kate Scott, who's now one of our medical directors, came to us from South Africa. We've done 5 years of general practice and various other things, but had the right attitude. So she came and worked as a healthcare assistant under my GMC cover, but was seeing everything. And I was just giving her authorization to carry on. Similarly, if you wanted to do hormone consultation, whatever you're doing, you're doing. So you're already doing it. And then need an authorization for a script to be signed, our team will do it for you. I've got 2 offshore doctors in South Africa doing the same thing. So it's just about using the system smartly.
Great. And how can I contribute to the community and to you? Because that, for me, this is all about, it's a circular, system and so I would love to make sure that because at the moment I feel like I'm getting a lot of benefit, but what can I offer back?
No. For me, I just think we have a number of conferences. We do 2 big ones a year, and where 300 or so people come. I think if you wanted to come and speak in one of these conferences, just to open up the awareness, it's a good group because they're all nutritionists and clinicians who can then refer to you. But I just think it's a pyramid thing. The more you talk about this, the more and more people are interested, and then indirectly the referrals come. You can't. The return is not a tangible thing. It comes from all directions. I promise you. Yeah, people just walk in your door and think, "How did that happen?" It's just a form of manifestation. So I would say be part of that team, because that's all you need to be honest with you, and let things work out. And then, but I feel also with some of the work you're doing, it's going to be really good for our patients, because we have a strategy with our patients. They come in, we do the detox, we do the restoration, we do the repair, we do the renew, and then we do a reframe, saying that's what other level can you go up to. And that's when they do the holotropic breath work, and they may even do some of the psychedelics, but they're ready for that next shift. And then they come to a higher level and higher. We call it medicine ad infinitum. There's no endpoint. You just get better and better and better and better. And then they become energized. They literally, their ego drops. They just become nice people. And ultimately, that journey is a 6 to 9 month strategy for us. So they keep coming back. And it might be nice for you to be pulled into that strategy. Probably in the reframe element, where you've got a blank piece of paper saying, okay, how are you going to now naturally stay where you want to be and get to the next level?
Yeah, no, that would be great. And
the other thing that might be helpful.
Go on, you first.
I don't know whether you know about the True Check. Do you know about the True Check test? True Check?
I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it. Yeah. So
we're working with True Check. It's a blood test that looks at the 45 block cancers at a cell level. So for me, when that result comes through, luckily at the moment everything's fine. It would be nice to sort of have someone like yourself, because this isn't cancer; it's just signs, and they get a full body MRI. But then what do you do? And the answer is, these cells can be reversed by doing this sort of nutrition, this sort of work, this sort of anti-inflammatory diet. So it'd be nice for you to be part of that package, where we could then say,
that would definitely be up my street completely. That's the kind of thing. So I have another question about what medical facilities do you have for things like scanning and stuff like that?
Yes, so we have the ultrasound on both sides. We have fibroscans for liver. We have bone density and bone fragility scans. We have direct access diagnostics to MRI, CT, mammography, all of it. There's no restriction on our diagnostic.
Okay, great. No, because that's also like sometimes, people just come and they want to do some more testing or we need to do more testing or, whatever it is, just to kind of make sure we've got that data to show that everything we're doing is working. And I think with the DEXA and the bioidentical, you also do the body composition as well.
Yes. Yeah, we do a body composition at the same time. Yeah. And we also do calcium score, bone profiles, vitamin D, etc. So it's all kind of done on site. We very rarely refer out to hospitals.
No, that's perfect, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. It's not like a one-stop shop where I can send people for those elements, as well. So do you have anyone else doing the genomic testing, or would you like to be introduced to the company that I use? I don't know.
So we've worked with Mudo, Faragon have shown it. There's a guy called Joseph Sieber in Germany who's doing his own. There's quite a few people. I kind of do, they do different packages for what you want. But yes, it would be helpful to see who you use. And
I use LifeCode GX, and so I've been doing stuff with them for the last 7 years. So it's because it's UK based, and their reports are really well laid out. And the training they do is really quite good for, they do a lot of free training actually, but a lot of other training too. And so I think it's been quite useful, because I know the founder to just be like, right, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it. Like, even like there's conversations about, would it make sense to create a cancer genomic? But there's not, because everything's related, so that's ridiculous, do you see what I mean? But then how do you combine the things? So it's been quite useful. But so again, I just really try and get most of my patients to do that, as long as it's in their budget, because it means that you know where to focus your energy on as well. I'm not saying that you don't do all the things, of course you do all the things, but I think then that gives it, it's really understanding, really personalized sort of thing. So
Well, I'm very pleased with this conversation. So I might get if Jessica takes your bio and etc., then what we can do is work with that, and I'll get this conversation, just our tech team could just snip it, and you can have a look
that'd
at
be great, and just use my Instagram. Exactly.
And
when I come back to London, it'll be good to meet in person. I'm back on the 24th of March, so I'll I've just got here,
I'm just doing I'm doing it because we do fasting's our big thing. We do a lot of work with Autophagy over the last 10 years, and so whether it's dark retreat fasting or proper fast. So I'm doing a 40-day fast at the moment. I'm on day 34 today. And it's
amazing.
So it's water and salt all day and broth in the evening. And it's been interesting seeing the body markers throughout those 33 days. It's not what you think. It's actually surprising what the body's just done. It's made its own protein, its own muscle mass. I've been exercising with no restriction on my workload. And I've got more clarity, more energy, more focus. And on day 40, I'm flying out to Mexico just to it's a retreat 40 kilometers, I think, outside Cancun. So I'm doing Cambo, ayahuasca, and Bufo. And then I'm
oh my God, you are literally going to come back so cleansed and so out. Because the thing is, they all do different. They all have different capabilities, right? And capacity, and different psychological levels. So Cambo's one I'm going to do this time round. So I haven't done it before. So what was the third thing?
How many? And Bufo.
Okay, Bufo. I haven't. So that's I was going to do it last year, I didn't, but I've got a really good practitioner here. So she's been away, so I've just actually messaged her when can we? Because I do want to do it as a protocol, because I'm here for 10 weeks. I don't want to do, I want to do it as a thing. So I'm excited to hear all about your adventures in Mexico. We'll have to stay. We'll definitely let's try and meet up when I get back, and you're gonna have the best time. It's gonna be life changing. I'm
only there for 4 days, but I'm
but the things that you're doing are going to be life changing.
And I think the fast has kind of put me in the state of ketosis for so long now. I can see the brain just opening up a little bit, and I think hopefully this will take it to a different level. So I'm just excited to know what it's going to feel like. But
Oh, that's inspiring. And interesting about the fasting, I was literally thinking last night, I was like, oh, I should do a nice long fast while I'm here, because I've got a bit more space to do it. And so this is talking to you, has been oh, this is why I was thinking this literally last night. And I was like, oh, well, how shall I do it? Because I've also been thinking about my hormones too. And I'm like, well, if I'm now at the other end, and like this is the perfect time to do it. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing more personally, because
Yeah.
that's how we
Yeah.
all learn, isn't it? And grow.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you're doing it. I can send you a protocol that would be useful to you.
Oh yeah, that'd be like super useful. Yeah, that'd be really, really good. Maybe not 40 days, but like definitely like,
No.
a shorter one, but like
Yeah.
for sure, like
Yeah.
I definitely think that'd be great. But look, let's stay in touch. Best of luck with
Lovely.
so
And I'll
that's
see you when you're back.
next week, next Thursday.
Yeah.
What, Friday you leave?
I'm flying out Wednesday and then back on Sunday. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Well, I look forward to touching base when you're on the other side. And I'm really excited to work with you. And obviously when I get back, we'll meet, and that'll be great.
Okay, lovely. Great.
Take
Nice to see you.
care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.